So now let's discuss the individual types of customizations that we can perform within CRM 2011. Before we get into that, we really want to talk about how they're organized. So in effect, organization of most of the customizations that we do in CRM are based around entities in one form or another. In fact, we cannot create an attribute and assign it until the entity exists. The same is true for relationships, forms, views, and charts, because they are all dependent upon a primary entity being in place. So in the customization interface, we're going to find after you create the entity, you can create attributes, relationships, forms, views, and charts within it. Dashboards are more global, so you can create them as part of the general customization interface, and it's not so restrictive. But generally, you have to have created a lot of other pieces before you start creating your dashboards. Finally, processes, both dialogues and workflows, ultimately are associated with entities as well. While not directly stored with the entities themselves, the entity must have been created, and the data elements or attributes within it must be in place before we can write our processes and publish them. So let's take a closer look at the customization interface from within the default solution. At this point, I have selected the account entity so that we can look at the different customizations stored within the account. At the very top is the entity configuration itself, which you'll note much is grayed out because this is part of a system solution. However, you'll notice that we can enable document management and queues, which have not been previously activated. Within the account, we can store multiple forms, and forms can be assigned security roles so that you can have a different default form depending upon what security roles a user might have, thus securing information that they don't need to see or might even complicate their job. You'll notice in this example we have a main form as well as a mobile form. CRM 2011 supports a mobile application out of the box, as well as being able to add on more powerful solutions from external software vendors. We can have any number of main and mobile forms, and we can assign a form order based upon security roles and the like. Next we see views. Views allow us to present lists on the screens to our end users, and we can have as many of them as we need. In this particular case, some are created automatically and supplied out of the box, but we can go in and create our own as well as customizing these. Next we have charts, and as you can see, there's 4 out-of-the-box charts included with CRM with the account entity. The data fields or attributes stored within the entity itself are next. Next we have one-to-many relationships, which allow us to define those relationships of which this is the primary entity. In this particular case, we're looking at the account entity, and these are all the relationships defined out of the box where the account is the one and something else is the many. The primary entity will always be considered the one. Next we have N-to-one relationships. These are the relationships in which the account is the related entity, but another entity or the account entity is considered the primary. In this particular case, the account is the many and the contact is the one. Now we have many-to-many relationships followed by messages. Messages are customizable, however, we won't be spending much time on them in this particular segment. Accessing the customization interface can be done in a number of different ways. Microsoft has been very strong on productivity in this area in the release of CRM 2011. We can go into an entity form or list panel, and if you have customization ability, a tab appears that allows you to go straight to customizations. If you access customizations using this method, it assumes that these customizations are part of the default solution. We can also go to settings and open the default solution and do our customizations from there. It's a more global process. And then finally we can open a specific solution and create customizations which are related to that solution. Any entities created within that solution would be owned by that solution moving forward. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that for you now. Accessing customization from within CRM is easier than it's ever been. The tools are powerful, but they're also placed well. Whenever I'm within a form within CRM and I want to customize, I have a few options. First of all, I can just go from within a list or a form and click on the Customize tab, which will bring up Customization ribbon and allow me to customize something related to the screen that I'm in. So in this particular case, because I'm in the account list form, it's allowing me to have access to directly customize the entity or to come in and customize system views as well. If, on the other hand, I went back to accounts and was in a particular record in an account, and while working on that form determined that I needed to make a change, then I also have the Customize tab right there on the form to be able to go straight into customization and edit the form itself. So here's an example of going into the customization interface from there. As you can see, it's loading the customization interface, and I can now go ahead and perform whatever features and functions that I might want to do, including dragging and dropping fields, moving sections around, and generally cleaning up the interface. Now, I can exit without saving my changes if I like, or I could have saved them. Any customizations created that way are automatically stored in the default solution. While we haven't talked about solutions yet, it's probably important for you to recognize that this can have an impact on what you're doing. So if you're working within solutions in the future, the other way to get into the customization is to plan a little bit more carefully and to go to Settings and Solutions, and now I can choose from a sample solution in my solutions, or I can work straight with my default solution by just clicking on Settings, Customizations, Customize the System. This loads the customization interface that can be associated with a particular solution. If you'll notice, all of the components that you can include in customization solutions packaging are listed here. For the time being, we only care about taking a look at entities, selecting an entity, expanding that entity, and then choosing from the individual customizations that we might want to do to a particular entity. This interface is a little bit more complicated, and it's important that you keep in track of which entity that you're actually in the process of working on, because it's easy to get confused with this list. That being said, within a particular entity, the different components that we can customize are listed. In this particular segment, we're going to overview the forms, the views, the charts, fields, and relationships. And as you can see, as we drill down through here, we can get to each one, open it up, and begin doing whatever customization that we might to do. Okay, so let's move on. Customizing CRM forms. Forms are used in CRM to present information to users for update, view, and so on. Role-based or multiple forms are now supported, so we have the ability to create multiple forms based upon the role assigned to individual users. This gives us great flexibility to be able to tailor the interface. Within a CRM form, we can customize the body, which includes tabs, sections, subgrids, web resources, and iframes. And we can organize this in various different ways to suit our needs. We also have a header and a footer that allow us to control what will always be displayed at the top or bottom of a pane when scrolling. And then finally, the navigation pane that links us to other related entities for that particular entity. This is the Forms Customization interface. So now let's take a moment and look at the customization interface for a form. I've already loaded the customization interface for the account main form, and we're now looking at the out-of-the-box account entity, and we have the ability to make our customizations. First of all, this interface is relatively complex and contains a lot of function that's difficult to show from just a screenshot. So I've decided to go ahead and take a demo of this particular function to make it a little easier to get an overview of how CRM customization ultimately works. We have a ribbon at the top, which gives us an awful lot of capability where we can customize in the body, or we can move and customize the header, the footer, or navigation. And as you see, as I select each one of these, different areas highlight as well as the Relationship Explorer that's been presented for what's over here. So in effect, as I highlight different things within the interface, it begins to reconfigure the screen based upon what I might be able to use. So let's go back to the body. And this gives me the ability to see the layout of the form, which I can go ahead and extend and scroll up and down through. Or I can navigate by clicking on a particular tab, which takes me to a section and hides the previous sections. So very quickly, to give you an example of how the interface works, I can go pick on a section. Within that section, I can alter the properties and many other things. We'll save most of these details for the actual segment covering form customization, but very quickly we'll just show you how we drag and drop a field to wherever we want it within the UI. And that has now added that field. We can also control the form and insert things as we need. So I can include subgrids, web resources, iframes. I can add new tabs in 1 or 2 columns. And I can add sections within those tabs that have 1 through 4 columns. It's a very powerful interface and productive as well. Given the fact that you can get to it from within a solution or straight within a form that you realize needs an immediate change, it's a very fast way to be able to tailor CRM and customize it for your users. Customizing CRM views. Views are configurable lists of 3 basic types. System views, which are created automatically by the system when a new entity is created. Public views, which you can create and customize and publish for access to all users. And finally, private views, which are manually created by end users and can be stored and shared, and are created using the advanced find interface rather than the customization interface. Moving forward, we will not be discussing private views because we do not consider that to be part of quote-unquote customizing a CRM system. So when it comes to CRM views, we can customize which attributes are displayed from the entity or related entities. We can filter out which records we wish to include. We can apply a sort order of 1 or 2 columns. And finally, we can choose the order of the columns in the view and the widths. Here's an example of the view customization interface. It looks a little different from the form customization interface, so we're going to spend a little time demonstrating this one for you too. Customizing views uses a rather different interface, so let's take a look at that one real quickly. We'll go into active accounts and make some changes to this view. First of all, the interface for customizing views does not support any drag and drop like the Forms view does. Therefore, the way that we move things around is we highlight a column and we can use these arrows to move them left and right. If we want to add a column, we click on the Add Columns and sort through a drop-down list and choose between entities related to the primary entity and choose between fields that are part of the entity that we're creating the view for, or we can also access record types of related entities. If we're in an active account, we could look at what the parent account is and include information from that as well. Or if an account is part of a territory, I can drill down and include fields from the territory as well. I can also customize the width of columns. One note I will make about customizing views is that you cannot change the name on a header, that must be done in the schema itself. I can also select my filter criteria. In this case, we only want active records. And I can configure sorting from up to 2 columns, so by account name and then by account city, or by account city and then account name, and so on. Finally, I can show any dependencies that relate on this view, and I can save, or I can do a save as. So I can take an existing view and save it as a new view, thus allowing me greater productivity in starting with a basic view and going from there. And that's all there is to it. And as you can see, Active Accounts Test now appears in the unmanaged list of views associated with the account entity.